Today on the Gifts of Trauma podcast.
What would you say the most common beliefs are? What do you hear over and over again?
I'm not good enough. Whatever I do, I'm not good enough.
Priya Duggal is a registered naturopathic doctor practicing in Ontario, Canada.
She was born and raised in India, where she became a medical doctor.
Upon moving to Canada, she added to her skills and obtained a degree from the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine.
Priya's areas of focus in her medical practice are breast cancer, autoimmune disorders, addictions, and supporting mental health.
Fibromyalgia is one of the areas I work on.
Fibromyalgia syndrome affects the world's population, with women accounting for 80 to 96% of all cases. Today, we explore memories, stories, and beliefs.
I'm so much programmed to do. Even though I know I need to rest, I can't help it. That's a trauma imprint. The key to fibromyalgia is rest and relaxation and really slowing down.
Today, we hear about how compassionate inquiry has shaped both the professional and the personal life of this practicing naturopathic doctor.
Compassionate inquiry helps me to understand what was missing in my childhood. It gave me my childhood back.
Welcome to the Gifts of Trauma podcast, stories of transformation and healing through compassionate inquiry. Today, I'd like to welcome Priya Duggal to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Rosemary. It's a joy to be with you today.
Excellent. Now, I have all kinds of questions. You have such an interesting background. And where I'd like to start really is if you met someone in a social setting and they asked the common question, what do you do for work? How would you answer?
And I get that question very often. Well, I'm a naturopathic doctor and I practice in Ontario, Canada, and I'm a compassion inquiry practitioner. That's my common answer. And then the next thing is, what is compassion inquiry? Is what comes up.
That makes sense because it's still fairly new. When you answer that question, what do you say?
So I tell them the background of compassion inquiry. Compassion inquiry is a psychotherapeutic process, which is approach, which is developed by Dr. Gabor Mate and Sadhharm Kaur. And the first thing which comes to me when I talk about compassion inquiry, it really taught me how to really connect with another human, soul to soul level. I had been to med school, I have been to naturopathic college, I have been to different learning places. That's what I didn't learn from there. That has been a gift to really connect at that deeper level with someone. And that's the gift which I bring to my practice. And I see the effect of it with compassion inquiry. And to expand on what is compassion inquiry is, all those places where we are mad at ourselves. Why do I do that? Well, why don't I stop eating sugar? Why don't I exercise a little bit more? It's like the easiest way for me to explain is we just turn that question into a compassionate inquiry, saying, I'm curious why I don't do that. I'm curious why I sleep late or why I do that. And it's a body work, and we are able to access those emotional states in ourselves through body awareness. That's how I explain compassion inquiry.
That's a beautiful explanation. How do people typically respond once you've shared that? Do they have more questions or did they just walk away with that nugget to contemplate?
It's a lot for them to absorb when I talk about compassion inquiry. And I think my passion for it triples when I talk about it. So it usually leads to a lot of questions and tell me more, share the website with me.
I love that you also mentioned right off the top, that it taught you, the major thing it taught you was to connect with people. And you are a healer. You've trained as a medical doctor, you've trained as a naturopath. And it wasn't until you came across compassionate inquiry that you really learned to connect with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a powerful statement.
It helped me connect with myself. It helped me connect with other human who's sitting across me.
So how has it shifted the way you work with your clients, this ability to really connect with people?
It helped me really listen to them, and listening to them in between the words, the body language, the way they're carrying themselves at the moment. Again, we pick up those cue words when patients are expressing themselves or sharing their processes. So it really helped me to go deeper in those places or bring their awareness to them, that those choice of words or how they show what's happening to them or how they share. That really helps to connect, and they really feel seen and heard. I hear it many times when they'll say, wow, this was the first time I really felt someone heard me. And that's such a beautiful, rewarding thing for me as a practitioner.
Yeah, I totally understand that. It's perhaps not such a glowing reflection on the medical community, both allopathic and naturopathic. Like their experience with you was the first time they really feel heard or seen.
Rosemary, for me,
Mhm.
shifting from, I never knew about naturopathic medicine before I got into it. So we moved to Canada, I had done all my exams and really getting ready to get a residency and practice as I was always doing. And then naturopathic medicine was a detour in life. And sometimes detours are the best things that happen to you. So it was a very gradual opening up of my brain or myself to what is health, what is well-being. So it was a shift from conventional, that we give more space to more time. The visit is longer, so more time, and we hear. And this again, a compassion query on top of it was like a cherry on the cake. It deepened the whole process. Yeah.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I was curious, having read a little bit of your background. You went from the arduous process of training as a medical doctor and working as a medical doctor, and then you moved into the naturopathic field, and you've just explained a little bit of this, but it sounds as if you weren't driven by feeling something was missing. It was just more you were discovering that there was more. And
Yeah.
is that the same when you got into your more mind, body, and spiritual approaches, or is there a different story around that?
I remember very clearly a moment in my life when I said, I really want to know me. This is not me, or something is missing. I really want to live my authentic life. And the universe very generously gifted me with. First, I met Sadharam Kaur. I learned about Healthy Breast program, and it has a component of yoga in it. And being an Indian, it's taken for granted. Oh, I know yoga. I was born doing yoga every day. It's not true. So my patients would come to me in the clinic and would ask about yoga, and I wasn't trained in it, unfortunately. So there was an inclination to learn about all these modalities. And then I went to learn Kundalini yoga from Sadharam. And when I did that, it was like, oh, it really opened or peeled the layers of me. And I felt I really understand myself. I understand the way I conduct myself, where I come from. Well, that was just finishing, and Sadharam told me we're starting compassion query training. So it was an organic moving in, say, okay, let's do that now.
So, are you a lifetime learner? Do you expect there to be more learning in your future, or do you feel that, it sounds like your path was driven by a desire to really know yourself? Are you at the end of that road, or is there more to come?
Never the end of the road, absolutely. I consider myself a lifelong learner. The quest for learning aspect is very developed in me. At times I have to stop myself before enrolling for different things, saying, okay, let's do one at a time.
Is it fair to ask you, what are you here for? Have you got a grasp on that?
Compassion inquiry helps me to understand what was missing in my childhood. It gave me my childhood back. My childhood was very regimental, no time for play or fun. And compassion inquiry gave me that gift again. So I always say I'm living my life in a reverse order. So there's more time for painting, drawing, having fun. As I shared with you, just dancing in the rain. I allow myself that. I allow myself to waste time, have fun. That's what I would love to share with the world. I am passionate to meet all those little children in all of us and help people understand what they missed so that they could bring themselves that in their lives. That keeps me in compassion query. I love to live my authentic life as much as I can and passionate to help others live who they live their authentic lives.
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I have lots of questions about that, but first I'd like to move to something that I saw on your website. You have a quote from Dr. Gabor Mate on your website, if I can just share it here. It says, "The purpose of the compassionate inquiry is to drill down to the core stories people tell themselves, to get them to see what story they are telling themselves unconsciously, what those beliefs are, where they come from, and guide them to the possibility of letting go of those stories or letting go of the hold those stories have on them." That's what compassionate inquiry is. Now, can you give us a sense of the relationship between trauma and the unconscious stories we tell ourselves? I have a hunch this might loop back to what you just shared in terms of your reclamation of your inner child.
Thanks for that question, Rosemary. One of the hallmarks of trauma is that we live in the past. Past shows up in the present moment. When our reaction or when we respond to something which is out of proportion, it's always a reflection of some stories, some perceptions or beliefs we are making up about the present situation. As I was sharing, when the patients come to me or someone comes to me for help, those cue words, "I'm helpless, nothing can be done about it now, it's over," or "I can't stop doing it, even though I know I need to rest, I can't help it. I'm so much programmed to do." That's a trauma imprint.
Right.
So that's the unconscious. It's a playful moment at that time to ask them. So the first day you were born, you were on a doer mode. You came on the planet to do, or you thought it that way, and then they laugh at it and say, "I don't think so." So that's the unconscious, and those are the stories we tell ourselves. I can't stop it. It's not happening. I'm all alone, or I'm all by myself. I hear it a lot. There's no one around, and really questioning those beliefs.
Yeah. Could you connect the dots for us? Maybe share a story of someone was struggling with something and you help them unearth the underlying stories, these old stories that come from the past. Can you kind of connect the dots, and then what happened for them once they understood what was driving whatever the issue is they came to you to get help with?
I get a lot of women in my practice, and fibromyalgia is one of the areas I work on. The key to fibromyalgia is rest and relaxation and really slowing down. And I see a lot of, and women are a PhD in that. We are givers and givers. Culturally, across the globe, we are taught to serve, be a good mom, be a good daughter, be a good wife, wherever we are in whatever hats we wear. There are a couple of stories which come to me with the same theme. I have to do it. Who else will do it? Attachment to that sense of responsibility. And I had it in me as well.
Mm.
Really looking at anyone who is upset in the house, taking it to self and say, "Hey, what did I do? Why are they not happy? Or why are they not smiling?" Or as if I have done something about it. During those conversations, really unearthing it and saying, "Hey, what are you believing about that? Oh, I'm responsible. I have to do it. It's my job." And again, going back to the body and really going back to those moments when those beliefs were formed. The most beautiful aspect of it is when you bring an imaginary child or say, "Hey, would you like it?" Would you say that to the child, and say, "Hey, you got to work and it's your responsibility. You do it, or it's your job." to make everyone happy. It's your job to do it for others. And they'll say, no, I'll never say it to anyone else. That's the aha moment. I hope I answered or
I'm just going to dig a little bit more, if that's okay. The story is something that comes from a real life experience. For example, maybe you talked about women, so I'll say a little girl. A little girl maybe is growing up with an alcoholic mom, and she has to take care of that mom. Like, it falls to her to be in charge of her siblings, making sure her mom is taken care of, maybe taking care of her dad as well. And
Yeah.
that just popped to mind because I'm responsible and I can't stop would fit into a story that someone with that life experience would create. So is that what you find when you go back? These stories are based in reality, but from a long time ago that's no longer true, but do they keep recreating it? How does that work?
Absolutely. As Gabor says, with our mind, Buddha said, with our mind, we create the world. And he would say, go a little behind and say, who created our mind when we were kids? So that belief, I am responsible, I have to. So let's say this little girl, when in childhood, she took over the charge of the household, taking care of mom, dad, perhaps siblings, others around. She goes back, she goes to work. It's the same thing. I have to. She takes on everyone's work. And she will come to me and say, it's okay. Even though it's not okay, you can feel it. It's okay if everyone gives their work or I get extra work. And then she comes home and with the family, it happens again. So it's an extension of the same belief.
Right. And because she believes she can't say no,
Yeah.
that goes to one of Gabor's books, When the Body Says No. So the fibromyalgia is the body saying no.
Right. And the sad part about it is when the body starts saying no, they're upset with the body.
Mhm.
It's like, I am so upset. My body is not cooperating. My body is not doing it. And there is so much to be done. I'm very upset. I can't run anymore. I can't do this anymore. And again, that's where compassion inquiry comes in, saying, can we just listen to the body for a moment?
Yeah.
What does the body need?
And once that you've worked with them, they've gone through this process, what would be typical for an outcome? Once they've connected with their body, they understand the beliefs, they understand the stories. What's possible for them?
I'll share what happens, what's the course, what happens is typically they'll come saying, I am really pushing myself. Even though I'm tired, I take myself to the gym, I'm walking, I'm doing all this. And when they hear from me, more rest, how about we rest? How about we listen to the body? It takes a while for them to absorb that. It's like, what? But don't we need exercise? But don't we need to do that? Yes, we need to, and don't we need to sleep more? Don't we need the rest part? So it takes a while. And I would say, how about experiment it? Try it for yourself. How about you close your eyes for a moment and just ask what the body needs? And they'll say, every time I hear sleep or rest. And I'll say, how about listening to it for a few days and see what happens? Then there's a shift. They say, I am sleeping more. And then, of course, at times the guilt comes in. Not doing anything, the house is this way, and I'm not doing it, and I'm feeling better.
Right. And then you get to deal with the guilt, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and then to do with the guilt. Guilt is an old programming.
Yeah.
Do everything.
So is it possible that people can get their body on side once they start listening to their body? Do the fibromyalgia symptoms release? Or, I'm wondering, like, as an outcome, what could be possible for someone you take through this protocol?
Absolutely. I've seen it almost every time with every individual I get. Once they're on board with this, once they start listening to their body and make themselves a priority, there's a huge shift in them.
Mm.
It's beautiful when they come back and they share how much difference it has, just listening, resting, self-care, how much difference it has made. And then there is a release of symptoms. The pain, it's not there anymore. It was asking for rest. It got what it needed and it's released.
Mm. And I imagine, old habits tend to die hard. If they slip and do a little backsliding and get into doing too much, their body reminds them.
Yeah, it reminds them, and then they'll come back or email and say, hey, you know what, I just did it and here I am crashed. And then they know how we are humans. We all do that, don't we? At some part, at some junctions in our life. And I just ask, okay, let's get back. Let's get back on track. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Obviously, your work addresses a broad spectrum of issues, from trauma's impact on women with autoimmune diseases to addiction to parenting, domestic abuse, and many more. I wonder, given what you've just shared, what are the common unifying themes across, and I just named a few of many, across all the different issues you work with people to overcome? Is everything that you work with coming from the same sources, old beliefs, old stories, old self-perceptions?
A lot of it, chronic conditions, a lot of it comes from the perceptions. Really digging deep into it, what I get most of the times is that belief that I have to justify my existence. I have to keep doing something. I can just sit idle. No, no, no. That can't happen. I have to justify each moment of my existence. Or I don't matter, others matter. That's a very common, yeah.
Yeah. Can you share some of the experiences that children have growing up that cause these beliefs? Like what happens? What happens to kids that they end up this way?
When as children, we don't get space to share our emotions. Let's say I am sad about something, I'm crying. And when tears are seen by my parents, when they say, don't cry, what are you crying for? Or don't cry. And when it happens repeatedly, what's the message I get? My tears are not welcome. It's not okay to cry. And again, when I am upset, anger in a child, who would say, I see you're angry. Sure, tell me what's happening for you. No. The first thing we hear is behave, be nice, don't be angry. With these repeated messages, when our emotions are not welcome, we learn to put them inside. We learn to suppress them. And then we start, that's when the caretaking starts in. I need to take care that everyone else is okay around me. I can't show my emotions here. That won't be okay. Many stories with that. I don't want to add stress to my parents' life. They already are stressed. So I don't want to. Even though I was bullied at school, or the story would be, even though this happened to me, I didn't come home and, I didn't come home and share. And that's such a conditioning that at that they'll say, no, I didn't, I never thought. Yes, the child never thought. But if it's your kid, would you want them to come home and share? Yes, absolutely. So when all this is happening in our lives and in childhood, and we have no place to share, because first the belief I'm adding stress to my parents' lives, or I'm a burden if I share, I don't want to do that. What's the message? What's the belief we form? Is I don't matter. I don't matter.
Thank you for that answer. It's a personal example is popping up, I think, that maybe many would share. And I believe it was done for the right reasons. I would come home as a little girl from school with a report card. I was a good student, so I would probably get mostly A's and one B and a couple of A pluses. And my parents would typically respond not with good job, but why aren't they all A plus? And just following the threads that you've laid out, that kind of motivation from your parents could lead to you being a little obsessive with achievement because you never feel what you've done is good enough. And then that would have to be unpacked. What struck me that you said before was, justifying our existence.
Yeah.
And something like that would play into that. I wonder, just because you work with so many different, what I'll call presenting issues, could you give us a couple of examples? Maybe someone comes in, they're battling with an addiction. What might be the circumstance that would cause somebody to gravitate toward addictive behaviors? Like as a child, what can happen?
The many different scenarios which I've heard from the presenting issue of addiction. One of the common theme is, and we all know the pain, there is pain underneath that addiction. The common theme is just being alone and no one to support or back me up. One typical example or story which is coming to me is recently I had someone come to the clinic, and it's about a man who said I was a troublemaker in school. I would always end up in trouble. When I go home, I would always be asked, why the hell you do that? Why just can't you behave? And acting out. Or he said, I was being cool. I wanted attention. When we really walked through the story, he started opening up, and this is what he said. I wanted attention. It was cool. People were following me. And what was the deficit here was the attention. If you're seen or you get the attention, you don't have to act out, or you won't be doing certain things to attract attention. And then I don't have anyone to support me. He would say, I'll be in principal's office, I'll be called all the time. Yeah, I'll be reprimanded for all that. And then no one actually understood why I did it. And it got worse and worse in my life. And I grew up, and I went in those circles where I wanted or appeared cool. So I have friends, I have people around me. So I wanted connection. I wanted attention. I wanted to feel special.
And what addictive path could someone like that find themselves on? If they want attention and there's no one around, what would they turn to?
The autonomy or the rebellion comes in those teenage years when we indulge in those activities which are against the law or which can bring trouble to us. So it's a wide range of all that which happens in addition to alcohol, other substances. Everything comes as a package.
So the pain that you've identified in this story is being alone, not getting any attention.
Not getting attention, not being supported.
Mhm.
I needed help. I needed someone to ask, why are you doing that? No one asked me that. I was all alone.
Yeah. So anything an individual in that situation could find to help with the pain, as you just said, it could be alcohol, it could be, really could be anything.
Yeah, it's just adding up, doing the same repetitive things. Underneath, I need the attention. I need someone to support me. And I keep indulging in those risky behaviors and putting myself in those situations.
And it could even be something more socially acceptable, like, adrenaline, like extreme sports, adrenaline highs, something like that.
And then then it's burnt out.
Yeah. Interesting.
I was seen when I was getting all those achievements, when I was getting rewards. So it's addictive when you're applauded. It's addictive when someone says, oh, this and this is so good at this. So I keep doing it. I keep doing it till I burn out.
Well, we've explored the stories a little bit, and you did touch on beliefs. Given the number of people you've worked with across all these different areas, what would you say the most common beliefs are that come from some sort of traumatic experience as a child? What do you hear over and over again?
I'm not good enough. Whatever I do, I'm not good enough. With my eyes, I see others are better than me. See how lovely they are. See how intelligent they are, how much they can express themselves. And when I see them, it's like such an accomplished person sitting here. And deep inside is, I'm not good enough. I need to do more. I'm all by myself. I'm all alone fighting this battle. So what is your nervous system in when you're fighting a battle that long? All your life, perhaps, right? I'm all alone fighting this. I justify my existence is really underneath. You have to really dig. What are you doing with all this? Why can't you relax?
Mm. So, given that that's the most common underlying belief, unconscious belief, until they come into your office and start to work on it, what sort of physical and emotional issues have you seen develop as a result of this strong belief that I'm not good enough?
Right.
If you could just share a few examples.
Before that, I would like to share or say, I have met all those in myself. All those beliefs. I'm not good enough. I'm all alone. All of it. So there's always a resonance when someone comes in and shares. How does it show up, or physical manifestations? Even as we sit here, Rosemary, and for a moment, if we can be with that belief, I'm not good enough, and just be with the body, what happens? I can experience anxiety, fear, a pressure to do something. I'm not good enough. What do I do? How can I be good? So, anxiety, tension in the body, insomnia, depression, doing, and I'm still not good enough. I see that a lot, lots of pain in the body.
Mm.
We are living in a pandemic, I believe, of anxiety.
Yeah, I agreed. And it's funny when you talked about how accomplished people are and they carry this belief, I'm not good enough. I got a picture in my mind of like a corporate executive or CEO. And from the outside, it looks like they've got it all. You know, the beautiful income, lovely home, family. And it's, you know, and if they were to maintain that belief long enough, I could see them possibly having a heart attack, you know, from that stress and that pressure, all kinds of issues like that. So, to contrast to that, once you've had an opportunity to work with someone and they recognize that these are old beliefs and old stories that no longer serve them, they stop buying in.
Right.
What do you get to witness when they release the hold of those old stories and beliefs?
It takes a while for them to release.
I'm sure it does. These are lifelong patterns, right?
Exactly. I see a lot of self-compassion, being gentle with self. It's okay. Yesterday this happened, I messed up, and I was okay. I didn't panic. I was okay with myself. And that's a huge shift, they would say. I would have gone on a whole, like an anxiety attack or panic if this would happen, but it didn't happen yesterday. I was okay. Being gentle with self, more self care, and that has a ripple effect. The whole environment changes, the whole workplace changes, saying it's okay. And others start noticing it, and they're more playful, more relaxed, more okay with the self, more grounded.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. I want to circle back to something you said earlier. You serve clients in your professional practice in both Canada and in India. Are there any distinctive differences between what people bring to you in those different parts of the world, or are they very similar?
Mm. The stories may be different. I've worked with people from across the globe, and it's so beautiful to see how across different cultures, different places of the world, how much alike we are. The distinction I would say is the self-care piece, or I'm saying it on a podcast when I work with the clients from India. We are so culturally conditioned to say it was all about me. No, 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 no. It was not about my parents. It takes a while to say, yes, I know your parents loved you. It was unconscious, could be multi-generational. Can we look there? So the conditioning is so much. It takes a little longer, if I may say, when I work with clients from India to go to the childhood and see what was missing.
So there's like a cultural resistance to being critical of the family or the parents.
Exactly. Let me just give an example. Being disciplined, maybe beating or whatever, or some sort of punishment. And I hear it from many accomplished friends and of mine who will say, "Oh, if I would not have received that, I would not have been where I am in life today." And at times I'll be playful and say, "Imagine if you had not received what all you could do. You don't know your potential. You must have done much more than that." So justifying that, I see a lot. Punishment, discipline.
Yeah. And so they're viewing their childhood through adult eyes, and perhaps they are parents, and perhaps they've had to discipline children. And so you've got all these filters to work through.
Exactly. You named it.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I know in families, stories can be repeated a lot. And sometimes they're stories about our own childhood that we don't remember, but because we've heard them shared so often by parents or family members, we almost take them on as memories. So, you were talking about culture, family culture. I wonder how these sort of, we've talking about unconscious beliefs that are not in fact true. There's something that came up as a child, unconscious stories that we've created based on our childhood circumstances. So I'm wondering where memories fit in, whether they're real or whether they're these stories that we take on and own as our memories. How do memories play into the whole aspect of stories and beliefs and trauma impact?
It could be the combination of both. That's my experience about it. Something being repeated in the families, we have repeatedly heard it, and some of our own memories. When we do the compassion inquiry work, we go in the body, we stay with the emotion. And when we're in the emotion, we are able to access that memory or pull that memory from the subconscious. And the beautiful aspect of compassion inquiry is that through that, we are able to bring it to a resolution by making the unexpressed express. What is it that you wanted? What is it that you wanted to say? You're allowed to do that. So that brings a resolution to that memory.
Mm.
So to answer your question, I believe it's a combination of both. Our own, the unresolved events which happened. Again, what is coming to me is sometimes from the adult lens, they may be very small. They may look very small to us, those little incidents of life. But for that little child, that was a lot. So that memory is there in the memory bank. And it's so beautiful when something present comes and you say, hey, when was it you felt that way? They just go to that memory. May I share an example with you?
Yes, please.
Recently, a client was sharing, saying, whenever when someone asks me something about news or what's happening around the world, or as they said, a smarter question, I'm frozen because the belief comes up. Oh, I don't know anything. I'm so stupid. I'm so stupid, and we're working through it, the frozen state and the fear which comes in, the shame which comes with it, and the memory which was pulled was, I just moved from another country. It's my lunch break. My teacher is with me. All others, my classmates are playing, and they're looking at me. I'm asked to repeat a word several times, and I'm so ashamed of myself. I feel so stupid. It's so embarrassing. Everyone is watching. Look where it stems from.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I wonder, do people ever hold conflicting beliefs and stories like I'm not good enough or I'm not enough and I'm too much? That's something I can relate to because I got told both as a child growing up. It's like I could get too intense and too excited. I was too much. And then I didn't get all A's or A pluses. I'm not enough. So it's quite confusing. Is it common that people sort of have dueling beliefs and stories?
I see it very often that people have those dual or conflicting beliefs. And sometimes what I see is like, let's say I have a belief I'm not good enough. How would I cope with it? I'll form a part which is very good, like the compensatory part of it. So then the duality exists. There's one part out goes out in the world. I'm very good. I'm good at everything. I am good. And then there's underneath, when I'm by myself, the little part which we have hid or really, really put inside or worked hard to put in there, it pops up again and says, no, I'm not good enough.
So it's almost as if maybe the original belief was I'm not good enough, and then there's a compensation, and they try to be good enough, and then they find that that's not getting them what they want either.
To the external world, they exhaust themselves, proving and showing I'm good enough to a point of exhaustion.
Yeah. And again, because this is all creating a lot of stress for the body, and I'm not talking about just the beliefs, but if someone believes they're not good enough, they may become a workaholic to prove that they are good enough. They may do too much, which causes stress on the physical body and leads to adrenal fatigue or other things. So you get to work within this, almost this triangulation of, trauma causing behaviors, causing dis-ease.
And the irony of it is that again, they get a message from different places where they are again whipping themselves. I have no idea why the gyms are open 24/7. Why would humans work out at 1 a.m.? Do any other species do that? Like, there are many things I can talk about here.
We humans just get this special quality that we spend our lives working through. So we've explored a broad spectrum of questions, and we're coming to the end of our time together. What would you like to sort of leave with us as a, maybe a contemplation point, something that the people listening to this conversation might take away and chew on a little bit?
As you say that, Rosemary, what's coming to me is it's again asking ourselves whenever there's a conflict or when internal conflict, whenever we are being hard on ourselves, would I say or do this to my friend? Would I say this to my friend? What would be my advice to my friend? The whole process, when I take on someone for compassion query work, I always tell them it's a brave-hearted, it's painful to go through those memories, those places of childhood. And we do that hard work to see what did we go through in life? And really finding that compassion for ourselves. Can we be gentle with this little person who went through all this in life and look where he, she, or they are now? Can we be compassionate? So compassion, I believe, self-compassion. It is a quote they say by Buddha, I believe. It says, if our compassion does not include ourselves, it's incomplete. And in my own being, I've seen the more compassionate I am to myself, the more I am to the world and in the world. We'll make this world more compassionate by being compassionate to ourselves. And the key to healing is self-compassion.
Beautiful. Thank you. So I'm going to put that up alongside the image you created when we first started talking of you going back into your authentic child, giving yourself permission, having the compassion for yourself to dance in the rain, to draw, to create, to play. Self-compassion, allowing play. I think that's a beautiful place to stop. So thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been wonderful to look at your world through your lens, and just so appreciative of the work that you do out there, moving people through this triangulation, this unique human triangulation that we all get to pass through in order to really live our authentic lives.
Thank you so much, Rosemary, for having me, and may we all have compassion for ourselves and others.
The Gifts of Trauma is a weekly podcast that features personal stories of trauma healing, transformation, and the gifts revealed on the path to authenticity. Please note, this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for personal therapy or a DIY formula for self-therapy. We'd like to thank you for being here today, and we'd also like to thank our guests, as well as Gabor Mate, Sataram Kaur, and the Compassionate Inquiry admin team, marketing team, and podcast team. Please join us again next week to hear more stories of transformation and healing through Compassionate Inquiry.